right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for starting your day with us. Welcome to our monthly coffee chat. My name is Rachel Zansky, and I'm the marketing specialist here at Aqueduct Technologies. I just want to note that today's call is being recorded. We do want to keep this interactive, so if at any point you have a question, you can type it into the chat or the Q&A box, and we will get those answered for you. So without further ado, Rick, the floor is yours if you'd like to introduce yourself and our special guest for today.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining this coffee chat series. Every month we put these together with various topics, and I'm pretty excited about this month with Flo Nicolas is joining us to ensuring ethical AI practices in the evolving digital world. Good morning, Flo. How are you?
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Looking out the window and it's snowing. So the reality of winter is going to kick in.
Yeah, I thought when I first got up this morning, I was like, it is a cold. And then I saw here in New England that we had the few snowflakes and all that going on. So jump right in, Flo. There's a lot of news going on with AI and all the different various things that are happening in that world. Can you give a little background about yourself and how you got so passionate about this?
Yeah, so I'm a lawyer who pivoted into technology and have spent a good chunk of my career, over 10 years, from having experience in modifications to cell towers, working on those 4G, left the industry right as they were starting to really vamp up the 5G project. And then from there, just started really, COVID happened, right? And now, like, it's like technology has always been around, but like during COVID, it became like this big boom of finding solutions that allowed the world, while we're shut down, but gave us the capabilities of essentially continuing to move, right?
Right.
Continuing to work. And in order to do that, we needed the technology solutions that allowed us to do that. So although Zoom was around and Google Meets and all these like remote features, we weren't really using them because we, were more predominantly, for most people, going into the office. For me, I worked from home, so we had to use a lot of these remote solutions. So during COVID, I really started just taking a look at all these technological advancements and just became so fascinated, one, with the amount of investments, the millions, the billions, and then the projections of trillions of dollars. And I just started, like, I don't know, I just got engrossed, just started in tech news, legal technology news. And around this time, I was working for a company called How to Contract that was training lawyers on contract negotiating and drafting. But how I came in there was I started talking about how lawyers can leverage technology, right? I started talking about all these technology solutions that were on the market, and from there it just continued. It just continued, of this obsession of all these tools. But then it also became, oh, these tools are fantastic, but these tools have all these other consequences, biases, and all these laws and regulations that everyone is just trying to figure out how to manage. And that's what I do, although that's not my full-time day job, because I'm more focused on being a technology tech founder and where our solutions. But we are also starting to notice the impact in terms of how companies are using technology and how it might actually increase biases and discrimination in terms of hiring practices. So yeah, I'm just very fascinated with just how we as humans are fascinated with technology, but also trying to understand the benefits and the consequences, and trying to educate my community on that.
Yeah, and I think the ethics discussion is a big one because as a cybersecurity technologist, even when we talk about using AI for good, we have seen an equal shift on things that are bad and being used for that. So it begs the question, of how do we strike this balance So even when we go back to the beginning in your part, talking about ethics and AI and hiring practices and all these different things that you can do, it's so easy to influence that we have to be mindful of it. Can you share a little bit about what your company does and how you guys are going after to make sure that we're striking that balance in business?
Yeah, so my company, where I'm a co-founder, is DEI Directive, and we are a technology company that has a DEI intelligence platform. And our platform is really focused on helping organizations ensure that they, when they're saying, hey, we're initiating or trying to roll out this DEI initiative strategies, and trying to ensure that they're also in compliance with, for example, EEOC, the Equal Employment Commission, as well as other civil rights laws and employment laws. So we're really focused on trying to diminish biases in the workplace. Now we're also faced with technology, right? Initially, it was human biases, but now we have the technology biases, which technology is created by humans. So now you're seeing the potential of biases of the people creating the tools that might start getting embedded. So we're really focused on one part of my day to day. I'm really focused on seeing what's going on in terms of any AI regulation going on, especially with the EEOC. And the EEOC, for example, has already come out and issued a statement, that says that, any organizations that are using AI for hiring, essentially beware,
Mm.
right? Aware that these tools have potential biases, and you can discriminate whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. So one of the things that they always talk about is trying to vet the systems and yourself to ensure that there are no inherent biases in the systems you're using. And the way to do that is by data analytics.
Mm.
If you're hiring, you need to be able to kind of have that bird's eye view on who are the people who are making it through the pipeline. Is everybody looking the same? Are we ensuring that we do have the diverse candidates that are coming through the pipeline? And to do that, you need to be monitoring that, right? And one of my philosophy is, as organizations, they need to be proactive and not reactive. Meaning, don't wait until you're seeing EEOC claims coming through, and you're getting those calls from the EEOC, or you're getting, notices for lawsuits because of your hiring practices. You need to be proactive in ensuring that you are mitigating any potential risks or things that could expose you to litigation. So that's what I do in my day to day.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Even at the basic level, we can influence, even applicant tracking systems, right? Using AI and forging these biases that we may or may not mean to do. And we need to be mindful of that. And as we start building more and more of these AI large language models, it's so easy to influence that bias, whether it's towards a specific company, but even more concerning is the discrimination factors that we have and all of the protected classes that we can just ignore, which we really need to be mindful of because we're going to get ourselves in a big bind pretty quick.
Now we're already seeing companies that are
Mhm.
getting in trouble, right? The lawsuits have already started. And what's going on right now in terms of AI is it's also, we're starting to see a lot of legislation coming in. All right. So there's the legal aspect of it, which is right now very complex.
Mhm.
And this is where companies that are looking to leverage tools, and a lot of statistics show that is essentially the projection. Companies wanting to spend more money and invest more money in using AI tools. Problem with that is, before you start really embracing this, having the shiny new tool syndrome, you also need to understand the potential impacts of having that tool in your organization. And this is where I believe legal departments are going to be very crucial. And in addition, this is why we're also seeing the increase in organizations wanting more professionals that have experience with AI, right? And especially professionals who have the ability to come sit at the table and say, hey, here are some potential data privacy issues that we're going to have to be aware of, right? Here are the laws that are currently in the pipeline, or here are the states right now that have established laws that say if you're collecting employee data, you're collecting customer data, you're using AI, you got to provide notice, you got to get consent. So there's so many complexities right now in terms of how to use that system and do it in a way where, as you mentioned, and why we're here today, responsible, it's ethical, and it is lawful.
Mm.
That's the other part.
Yeah, and we're seeing like even from a cybersecurity perspective with privacy laws and the way that the government is pushing back, public companies with SEC initiatives and private companies getting the duty to report based on different adaptations we get to get. I feel that there's going to be a lot of push into those regulations with AI. And we're already starting to see that in the current administration of things where they're trying to shape how responsibly we use AI. Do you want to talk about that for a minute? Because I think you have a great take on that particular executive order and what they're trying to do.
Well, I appreciate the confidence. I think a lot of people are still trying to understand this executive order. But in a nutshell, so there is the AI Bill of Rights, which is an extension of kind of this voluntary Bill of Rights. So I don't know if you guys might be aware, a bunch of big tech companies, everybody went to Washington, and everybody's talking about how can they make AI more ethical and more responsible. And initially it was just, hey, we're gonna volunteer to do this, right? We're gonna volunteer to do what's right, because there's this kind of trying to the weigh in, right, of the benefits of AI and the weigh in of the risks of AI, right? Where it becomes really critical and important. And that's why, we have a lot of talks about how do we regulate this technology that's coming out at such a fast pace. So fast forward, everybody is hanging out at the White House and trying to figure out how to regulate this. Fast forward, we get the Biden administration executive order. And that executive order, it's really, the way I look at it, is a bark of orders, right? It's a framework that says, here's what we should do in terms of regulating AI. But here are the organizations that are going to be responsible for actually creating and implementing the regulation of AI, right? So we still need the legislators to actually create the law,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So that will, really, again, implement the regulation of AI. So that part hasn't been done yet. So this executive order is not quote unquote law, right? As we remember, if some of us remember in history class, every branch, has their, you know, their abilities of what they're able to do. And we need our legislative team to actually, they're the ones that are going to create the laws. So this executive order is limited in terms of the capabilities of what can actually be done, right? So we've got to have these organizations that have been told, they call this, like, I guess, the all government approach, right? Getting everybody hands on deck to figure out how to regulate this AI. So part of a lot of the components is we want to increase innovation. That's the number one thing, right? Everybody loves this AI. It's increasing in investments, it's increasing and pouring into our economy. So what we don't want to do is stop it. What we've got to figure out is a practical way to regulate it where we are not one. AI is not going to come in and essentially, a great example is we don't want companies using AI to now decrease the compensation of their employees,
Right.
right? We don't want AI to cause any potential nuclear warfare,
Hmm.
right? We want to make sure if government agencies are using AI, we got to lay out the framework in terms of how one, again, it's going to be protecting confidential information, right? We already know that government agencies, and you guys know this from a cybersecurity perspective, government agencies are the most targeted.
Right.
And what we also know is that generative AI, recent research from scientists show generative AI can be manipulated,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Right. It can be manipulated to reveal its essential training module. It's manipulated to reveal sensitive data, right? Another great example is whistleblowers out of Amazon leaked documents. Amazon created this chatbot called Q. And one of the things that they started realizing is that one, it hallucinates a lot,
Yeah.
right? Makes up stuff. Uh, the other dangerous part is there's a potential where it could leak out customer information. Right? So those are the things this executive order is trying to figure out. How do we regulate this stuff? How do we do it? And what it says is, hey, you, this organization, that organization, you guys go figure out how to do it and come up with the frameworks of how to do it. So the how to do it part, that's still a mystery, right? Because
Right.
the order, right? So the order is a wish list of what we should be doing, but how we're going to do it, that's the part that's now the moving piece. That's the part now where we have several agencies that have been tasked with, again, creating frameworks, are now working on them. So we still need to kind of sit back and wait and see of how this implementation of this executive order is going to actually happen, because it actually hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and we're seeing AI um, manufacturers, whether it's with, Microsoft or Google or whomever, trying to accelerate this before there's any legislation, before there's any guidelines. They're trying to get as much done. And it is creating a little bit of chaos out there. I know we've seen in the news what's going on with OpenAI, and the things that they're trying to do. Do you
Yeah.
think that influences the other companies, or do you think they're just it's gonna be the Wild West until somebody wrangles them in?
So yesterday, an article came out where you have a bunch of these various companies, tech companies, and I believe like IBM is one of them. It's a whole list of companies that have now banded together, and they're saying we need to create these AI tools openly, which means we need to create this not behind our closed doors, but we need to work together, share resources. And this is a step towards creating ethical and responsible AI. And there was kind of like a jab in there from one of the companies. And I think the jab was towards Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI, because they've been kind of, you know, building quietly behind their closed doors and really don't want to share information, because a lot of companies, they're like, this is proprietary. This is our baby. Why do we need to share? Why do we need to share this information with you? That's how, we're racking in the billions of dollars, right? This is how we're capitalizing the market. But you another school of thought that's saying, no, we should be working together, having a open source market, right? And where this is a whole kumbaya by the fireplace, roasting marshmallows of big tech, giant, big tech researchers and scientists working together, because again, their thought process is when we are all fully aware of how these tools are being created together as a team, we are better able to, one, help each other understand the risks better, faster, and collaborate, the C word, collaborate together to ensure public safety and also ensure in terms of guidance and frameworks of how to better regulate the technology. So I think what we see right now is almost like a MMA fight and a WWE fight of two various school of thoughts in terms of how and should AI be regulated and the steps to take that. So we want to do it on our own. We don't want to collaborate. And now we have these other tech companies, even including startup companies that are saying, no, we got to do this together. So it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see how this new
yeah.
pack that's formed, what they're going to be able to establish.
Personally, I hope they do something because, like, even when we look at things like, and we'll get into a second, like do, chat bots that are built to do nefarious things, right? You can make it look like it's supposed to be there, and folks will start interacting with it, and they have no idea. It's so easy now to insert a bot in a banking website where you log in, you start chatting with somebody, and it's not even that person there. There's been talk about watermarking or signatures on there. How real do you think that is? Do you think that's gonna come to play? Do you think we'll be able to do something with it? Because I mean, you talked about public safety, right? That could really wreck somebody's
Right.
career or do something with some of those deep fakes.
Yeah. So that watermark, excuse me, came up in the executive order, and exactly how to do it. That's another part that they haven't really figured out. But here's the biggest thing: there is a probably $1 billion content creator market, right? And a lot of these content creators, like myself, are using AI. The watermark theory is essentially supposed to say when you are generating content, there should be some type of a watermark that says that this content was generated by AI, right? Uh, Maybe with the watermark on a federal level for federal agents that
Yeah.
might be using AI, that might, I think, be a feasible requirement to allow that. But where I see where it's going to be difficult is a great example. LinkedIn right now just launched, this AI assist, right? So now when you go online and you want to clean up your profile, it will say, do you want AI to assist? You want to create your post, it will say, do you want AI to assist? And we're seeing a lot of other big marketing agencies that are also leveraging AI to, help their clients. Or maybe, you are in the marketing department of a company and you are using AI to help you generate content, generate images. You know, do you really want a watermark showing up on on that image,
Yeah, that's a
saying
good
this
point.
was generated by AI? Most people probably will not want that. So I think, and again, this is my personal opinion, again, and nothing has been set in stone. This is part of the discussion, off the executive orders and the teams that are going to have to look into this to see if this is feasible. But from a content creator perspective, um, I don't want my stuff having a watermark, right? If I'm like, for me, when I use AI tools, it's for me, it's more of an assistant. Like I will write out my stuff, Then when I read it back, I might think, this kind of sounds off. It's
Yeah.
not, there's something missing. So I might use the AI to say, hey, clean this up for me. Does this sound right? Could the audience understand, what I guess the point I'm trying to make? So I think we're probably going to see resistance, some content creators that will not want to have a watermark. But I can also understand the risk, especially with when you start seeing deep fake content, right? There's so many Tom Cruise accounts on TikTok, right? But that's not Tom Cruise,
Right.
right? That's someone using AI technology who somewhat looks like Tom Cruise, but then he uses this technology that gives him the Tom Cruise face, right? So if I wake up tomorrow and I want to look like Halle Berry, I can do the same thing. I can use the technology and look like Halle Berry. So I can understand in those contexts, especially also in the political arena, where you could potentially use deep fake to have Biden saying something when it's not actually him saying something, but it's someone else who just wants to put him in a bad light, just like you can have anyone else using any one of the candidates to spew hateful speech, and it might not be them. So I can see areas where it will be required and really needed to have the watermarks. But I can also see areas where, if you just have a content creator that's posting on LinkedIn, um, maybe not, but maybe it depends on the type of content they're posting. So, it's a
Yes.
whole hot mess, right? And I feel for the people that's got to work on this and are on the committees that have to figure this out, because it's going to be a challenge to really determine what content needs to have a watermark on it.
Yeah, and it's striking that balance, right? And really, I mean, we're even seeing cybersecurity. We're seeing voice manipulation, where
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
changing the voices and are getting, hey, I need you to wire me money, and it sounded like one of their family members. There's so many different things coming on, and I guess that begs the question of striking the balance between that and innovation, right? Where
Right.
where does that intersect lie? And we have to be careful. And back to your point, I don't envy the folks on those committees
Yeah.
trying to sort all of this out. As we see this all evolving, what do you kind of see in the next couple of years with all of this happening?
Yeah, so there is definitely, so the NIST, which is the National Institute Standard Technology, they're kind of the lead in terms of this executive order, and kind of helping in terms of research, and there are other government federal agencies that are also involved in trying to really take that executive order and find ways to figure out how to implement and regulate this technology. But what I also see right now, so with the U.S., we are known as like a patchwork country in terms of like data privacy laws, right? We don't have like a uniform, data privacy laws, right? We have various states have their own laws. And that's the same thing that we're starting to see as well with AI, right? We're starting to see various states having AI laws that are regulating how they, again, collect our information, um, as well as abilities for companies using biofacial technology, hiring tools, right? So all this, but we're also seeing a lot of bills that are proposed. So I think the next couple of years are going to be a hot mess in terms of trying to regulate, because we have so many moving pieces, right? And we have so many states that's just kind of imposing their own laws. And I think, or not, I should say, I know for, especially for lawyers or any tech professionals, data privacy professionals, um, this is going to be a hot for them. And I also want to add employment lawyers and labor lawyers. It's going to be a hot market for them because as regulators and as states and as a country and globally, as everyone is trying to figure out this technology, they're going in people who can come to the table and understand and make recommendations and really be the, and I hate using the word expert, but and really being the quote unquote subject matter experts that can really put together not just frameworks and guidelines, but be able to also put together how it can be implemented, how it's going to be monitored. For one, we need transparency. Two, we're going to need accountability. And that's what I see is what's going to be happening. I think the technology is going to, no one is stopping, right? Because there's this race. We want to be the tech baddie country,
Right.
right?
Right.
We want to be known as the global leader in tech innovation. But we also know that other countries are also pouring in millions and billions of dollars to also have that title. So we're going to see a lot of what we've talked about already, that trying to balance between the benefits and the public risks and trying to somehow make it all work. And I don't think it's going to happen. And I think also one of the other issues is we have too many chefs in the kitchen, right? We have too many people trying to figure this out. And what we need to be careful of having competing laws, right? So let's say you are a business that serves in the US. New York might have its own law, so you'll be compliant in New York. But then you might go to California and not be compliant in California, right? Then you might go to Texas and be compliant, but then you go to Florida and you're not compliant. So there's all these complexities that are going to happen. And one thing I can say to organizations now that are already using AI, thinking about using AI, is to be proactive, start either putting a team together. There's some AI experts that say, hey, start creating an ethical board, AI ethical board. Get an AI ethical officer. Stop putting together AI ethical framework in your organization. How you're gonna audit the systems use, right? And have diverse voices at the table is the other thing that's going to be needed.
Yeah, and I think you bring it up. It's striking that balance and then being the proactive piece of it. And I think that's the solution to all this. A lot of laws become reactive laws rather, but if we stay in front of it, one of the things that I'm seeing now is people management systems, right? That's probably
Yeah.
the best place to start, where you're making sure there's no discriminatory actions in there. Where you make sure that you're looking at the full scope of what it's trying to parse out for the data analytics that you brought up. We're seeing from identity access management as well, is this a human or is this a bot kind of thing from there? Well, if it is a human, of that, how can you prove, and it's just making sure that we're taking a holistic approach out of it. And I think even though the technology is moving fast, I think if we take a rounded approach to it, it'll be better for all of us, and that way we're not
Yeah.
trying to chase the fire, right? We're not trying to, you know, put something out and it's already moved on.
Yeah, and you make a good point. And also too, from a cybersecurity perspective, you also want to ensure that you're vetting your AI system, right? Because I know sometimes in some of the cybersecurity systems, they're, tracking to see, what employee frequently, click on sites,
Mhm.
right? But what you don't want it to do is to start targeting specific employees of certain backgrounds, and that now you're only watching those employees and potentially missing someone else who's actually, more off the risk than other people. The one thing I'll also put in this, where the technology community, especially tech companies, need to be aware of. We there's a lack of diversity in our tech ecosystem, right? We don't have a lot of engineers, IT, and the people who are building these tools. And why does that matter? Well, the thing is, when there's a lack of diversity, there is a lack of potentially looking at things from different perspectives, right? So you might have a tool that's been created by all men, right? And their perspective is going to be from their perspective as men, right? So that's why you want diverse perspective. You can look at things like, hey, let's say you're building a AI tool for photos, right? Enhancing photos. But your tool doesn't have a lot of um, characters that are representation of various people of different backgrounds. And I've done a post about this on link where I went to use an AI enhancement tool and uploaded my photo. And when it spit out the output, I was blonde and I have blue eyes and I was white, right? So that's where there's a need for ensuring that these tools are being created by diverse teams, because when you have diverse perspective, you can ensure things like that, like, hey, it looks like we need different shades, right? Hey, some people have different shapes of eyes, we need to make sure we incorporate that. And that's why also there's some experts that when you get an AI ethical task force, some of the people that should be coming to the table for companies that do have, for example, a chief diversity officer or inclusion officer, that they probably might want to be at the table having these discussions about how to create more ethical and more responsible AI. And part of AI needs to be trained on diverse um, right, that represent that diverse backgrounds and people in our communities and in our country.
Yeah, I agree. That will I think it'll give AI more of a voice because, we've seen it right now. It just is so monotoned in the way that, it responds back or the way that it does anything. And, it could get to a point where, I don't want to say think for itself, but it's influenced by things that it shouldn't be influenced by. And, then that's even harder to clean up after the fact, you know.
Right. And that's why they say when you're doing the audit, you want to have the different perspectives at the table, because then they'll be able to look and say, wow, our company just hired, 20 new employees and they all look the same, right? When you have that different perspective at the table, they'll be able to pinpoint that. But when everybody looks and they're hiring the same, no one's going to look at it and think, oh, there's something wrong with it, because that's what they know, right? So that's why you need the different perspective. And when you said, well, AI doesn't think for itself, well, Google was on 60 Minutes. I don't know if anybody else saw that. And they actually noticed that their AI had the capabilities of actually learning by itself. They can't figure out why. So just letting you know.
Yeah, there was an engineer, was a year or so ago where he was working in that, and he said that it started thinking for himself, and he got the heck out
Yeah.
of there. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting, and it's an interesting time. I mean, I love being in the technology field. I love being in the cybersecurity field and seeing all these advancements, but I think they all should come with caution. I'm one to, like you, use the new tools to see what they can do, kind of get the output from there. But again, it should be, used for caution. We don't want to be having it hallucinate or put things out there that aren't true, or things that could cause more harm than good, right? So again, it's all about striking that balance. I think us, as practitioners, do a much better job than the governments do, as far as doing that. And
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that, we'll police ourselves and make sure that we're doing, everything. Because I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to do the right thing. Um,
Right.
you know, and I think you know, we'll get there, over time. Yeah, I just hope there's not, too much nefarious stuff going on, that it winds up, kind of hurting innovation, I guess is the better way to put it. As we wrap up here, one of the things I wanted to say, what kind of advice can you give individuals and organizations, other than what you shared, as far as resources or things that they can look at for ensuring that they're, doing ethical stuff with AI?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think definitely organizations need to get a step ahead. And I think one of the things is when you're looking to use an AI tool is understand, for example, with the data privacy, that's one that I just have to highly stress is understand what you're collecting and understanding, especially if it's for your employees. You got to understand, there's some states that have laws now that say you got to let your employees know and they got to give consent of what you're collecting. And then you also got to know where it's stored, how it's deleted. So I think this is a time, and we're seeing, as I mentioned earlier, a demand in AI professionals is that, this is with the AI stuff, especially for HR people, for example, it's not really a quick plug and play. You got to understand the ramifications of how you're using it, the laws, that are existing. And so having people within the organization or maybe leaning into your legal department, right? I feel like the legal department is probably getting extremely busy, especially with the impact of technology. So maybe first start in your legal department. How tech savvy is your legal representation? Do you need to bring in another legal person per diem, part-time or fractional? You don't have to incur the expense of hiring somebody full-time. You can get a fractional legal representative who understands or is following up with what's going on. There are some tech companies that are starting to create AI data governance tool. There's a company that I met their founder at an AI data analytics conference, and it's Align AI. So Align AI is one that are kind of keep in track. I have a call with her on Friday because I want to get a better understanding of in real time, is the platform monitoring all the AI laws and regulations and helping companies, stay abreast of what's going on. So as I said earlier, I think it's imperative for organizations that are looking to invest and use AI tools to really be proactive, understanding the impact. Obviously there's the benefits, but you also want to understand the potential harm or potential biases and ask those questions when you're speaking with a vendor. Ask those questions. And when you're negotiating, you might want to ensure that that contract has provisions in there that will protect you in case if there are any issues. But it's enjoy the technology, explore the technology, use the technology, but also beware of the potential laws and risks that come with it and be prepared, because the way things are going right now, it's not going to be enough to say, well, we didn't know, because that's not going to be good enough. You are going to be in lawsuits and be held accountable. So step ahead of it.
That's amazing. Thanks so much for that. As we wrap up, Flo, where can folks find you? Where's a good place to look for you?
Busy on LinkedIn. I think that's the best place to find me because I'm constantly posting content on there about what's going on. If I appear on a podcast or a webinar, I post where I'm going to be. So that is the best place to find out. I most of my content is tech related. So if you want to keep up with what's going on, then follow me on LinkedIn.
I will say it is a great feed. I do pick up a lot of interesting stuff off your feed, and I'm like, I did not think of that, So it's really amazing. So again, folks, as we wrap up here, take a look if you have cybersecurity issues, talking about AI, talking about people management systems, or anything that involves AI. Feel free to reach out to myself or Flo. Flo, thank you again so much for joining us today. And I look forward to working with you in the future.